All right, welcome back to another episode of the Bool Boys podcast, episode 20. Well done, Sebastian. We've been through 20 episodes. That's, as I mentioned last week, that's 5 months worth, almost half a year. So thanks for those who have stuck with us. Today will be NFL halfway report slash kind of a rundown of the history of the divisions. Game of the week is Lakers Suns from Friday night, and then top five is from Sebastian this week. You want to go ahead and tell us what top five is, Sebastian?
Sticking with the theme of negativity from last week, it'll be top five most hated teams.
Yeah, I think last week was fun, and I think listening back, it was fun to listen to some of Johnny's commentary on some of his picks as well. So,
But
to say the least.
He's great at getting into his hater bag. He's
Yeah,
one of the legendary haters.
exactly. He pulls deep. Yeah, he goes in there deep. Um, so let's start with the NFL. Like I said, so the idea is where this came from is that I was looking at the standings on the NFL, and I just looked at the top teams, and I said, over the course of my however many 5 to 10 years of casual watching the NFL, whenever I tune into these standings, it always seems like there's some teams that are always at the top of their division and historically conquered their division. Like I think the easiest one, which would be AFC East and Patriots. But now that era is gone, and there's kind of a shifting and changing. So what I brought Sebastian on, who is like who knows this better than most, is like to talk about how this year's division leaders are doing and how it compares to the trend of the previous 10 years. So, like, we'll start with AFC North, and then we'll kind of see, like, when the era is handed off and talk about what's going on now and whether this team is a surprise at that level or is it just kind of normal, the status quo for that division. Any comments, Sebastian, before we get started?
No, I think it's definitely interesting. It's funny that you said we're going to start with the AFC North because I feel like that one's probably been like the most normal or one of the most normal. Because for like the past decade, it's pretty much been a two-team race, and I guess the last few years you could say three-team. But I mean, there's two consistently good programs in that division, so I guess we'll get into that. Yeah,
Yeah. So, just going quickly, AFC North started with the Ravens, and I hope that we're talking about the same team. Is that one of them for sure is the Ravens, right?
yes,
And
correct.
then, but the other one now I'm getting confused because I see a third team. I see the Bengals, but you're telling me is it the Steelers?
It's the Steelers for the past decade. If we're going like last 3 years, 4 years, yeah, the Bengals are included in that group. Probably
So
3 years.
okay, so you said it perfectly. So we see in 2021 the emergence of Burrow and his Bengals. They've won the last 2 years. Then you have Lamar and his emergence before that from 2018 on. The Ravens have won three consecutive, then Steelers for two. But then my question to you, Sebastian, is in 2015 and 2013, the Bengals won. So what happened there?
Did
Was that
they?
Carson Palmer's last year
No, that
or
was
last
Andy
hurrah?
Dalton. It was
Andy
Andy
Dalton.
Dalton. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
forget about those teams. That is true. They were very solid, but I actually don't know that they ever won a playoff game with that like nucleus together. I think they had the one epic disaster game where they should have beat the Steelers and then got like three personal foul penalties and set the Steelers like into great field position where they were able to kick a game-winning field goal. And then I think there was another year where the Bengals were playing, maybe it was like the Texans or the Colts with Andrew Luck, and they choked that game away as well. So yeah, they did win, but I actually think they weren't the only team from their division to make the playoffs that year, and they somehow, I think, maybe even didn't go as far as the wild card teams from their division. So it's kind of why it's forgettable, I think.
so just to recap though, but and correct me if I'm wrong, was 2016 and 2017 Roethlisberger's last hurrah?
It was the Yeah, I mean they had 1 year after that, the COVID year where they won. They started off like 10-0, I want to say, and
Oh
then
wow.
everybody thought they were terrible, and they still were winning all these games, and then they fell off a cliff, and it was a disaster.
Didn't
I
they
think
bum
six.
out of the playoffs?
Yeah, I believe so. I think
Okay, I kind of
16
remember
and
that. Yeah,
17, yeah, 16 and 17 were like the Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown years, I believe, which was always my belief that they were the whole reason that team was doing well.
for sure.
And yeah, Ben was kind of just like a lucky guy to be in that position.
That's fair. But as we go through the AFC North, it really was. It seems like these three teams, kind of two teams in particular, but recently and at the beginning of the decade, the Bengals have kind of jumped in and tried to play. And then you have like this black sheep, ugly brother that is the Browns that never just seems to win. It's been a long time for them. They're good. I mean, they've been good for a couple years now, but they never would take away from winning the division. Is there any time in the history of this division where the Browns were actually the best outside of like, was it the 80s or 90s?
Jeez. I'm
Has
not
it been
sure
that
that
long for them?
I can't, have they won the division since they returned to Cleveland? Like, I'm not, they have to have, but I don't remember it. It definitely hasn't been in the last decade. They maybe did like 1 year with
So,
Derek Anderson in the mid 2000s or something like that.
quick research
They
here tells me 1989 was the last time they won a
okay,
division.
that makes a lot more sense because I could not remember them winning the AFC North at any
So
point.
now let's move to fast forward to this year, Sebastian. We got a history of the. It's basically been anyone but the Browns in this division, and now we move to this year. Tell me about this year. Who's at the top? It looks like it's the Ravens, of course, playing well
Yes,
at 7-3. Steelers are, of course, in it, but lo and behold, Browns are at 6-3 as well. It's one of the toughest divisions
I think it is
out
the
there.
toughest.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me about this year. Is it? I mean, we see the Ravens at the top, but give me a little rundown of what's happening for them.
So I think the Ravens look like the best team in the division. The offense has looked pretty elite most weeks. Um, I think compared to preseason expectations, they're probably one of the more impressive teams. But they still have this tendency to like lose games they really shouldn't lose. Like today against the Browns, I would say that's a game they should never lose. And they had another one earlier this year. Can't remember who it was against, but they get loose with the football. Particularly Lamar does. Like he had a terrible interception today that kind of didn't necessarily fully cost him the game, but it certainly played a huge role in it. And yeah, I think the Ravens on paper should win the division. It would be an abomination if the Steelers did. I absolutely hate watching that team. I think they're one of the worst teams, and somehow they're 6-3. Like they're just disgusting to watch. Defense is really good though. I'm not trying to take away from like a TJ Watt and that in the gang over there, but yeah, to me the Steelers are the worst team in the division. Yet they're in second place. I'd probably say the Bengals are the second best team in the division, but they're in fourth place, especially after today.
Yeah.
And I'd say the Browns are like the third best, but the Browns are equally sometimes as disgusting offensively because of the Deshaun Watson
Shitty Deshaun
situation.
games. Yeah.
Yeah, which is more than half of the games from him tend to be shitty. Um, and nobody knows if he's fully healthy or what the whole deal was. It's just I don't know if it's sad. I don't. Yeah, but
Maybe. Well, it's
yeah,
because we were
he's
talking
not the
about it at the
most.
beginning of this, like in our regular season preview. Like, this is his year to say whether like that blip last year was just like rust and a little bit of injury aberration, or like this is who he's going to be now coming off his hiatus. And it seems like it's kind of the latter, which is that's the sad part. But
Yeah,
not saying he's a great person or anything, but yeah. Anything
sad
else
for
for
the
AFC
team.
North? I think yeah, sad for the team that shelled out an inordinate amount of money for him and guaranteed at that. But this, when I see AFC North, I see kind of what we expect. There's nothing out of the ordinary. You mentioned the Steelers, but they're the Steelers. Tomlin's a great coach. It just seems like he always is going to flirt with near 500, and I think by the end of the year, that's probably what they'll be. Is that fair?
Yeah, they
I mean,
probably should be like
they
that.
got
They're 6-3, so they'd only have to go what 3-5 to
three
finish
and
the year.
six or 3-5. Yeah, okay,
Three and
yeah.
five, yeah, to finish
So
500 seems probable.
yeah. Okay, let's move on to AFC South. Anything else from our preseason wins or losses column. Anything that you wanted to throw in for the AFC North before we do, though?
No, not necessarily. I just would say the Bengals are such a weird team because they started off so poorly, everybody wrote them off, and I'd say they have like the biggest turnaround so far this year, despite losing today. But I don't think today is a terrible loss because we'll get into it later, but I think the Texans are very good.
Okay. So let's move to AFC South. So all I saw here was that the Tannehill uh, kind of Derrick Henry type vibe, right? That's through the last 2 years, right?
A
From
little, yeah,
Titans,
a little more. It's been a little longer, but the
a
Tannehill era is
little bit
definitely,
long.
yeah.
But then now you recently see the Jaguars come to the fold. Before it was, you can see the last remnants of Colts and Andrew Luck's era kind of tipping into the beginning of the 2013-2014 series, and then kind of becomes a free for all. Texans steal a couple, Jaguars steal a couple, and then the Titans come into the fold. So, what were your comments on the AFC South and anything from our preseason wins?
Well, so I think we all undersold how good the Jaguars could be. Um,
Okay.
I thought they would be a playoff team and they probably would win their division. I didn't think they'd be in the upper class of the AFC. And they have to keep winning because the Texans are right on their asses. Like to me, they're like
We got punked today, though.
the Texans. They
No,
won.
Jaguars.
Yeah, Jaguars got punked today really badly.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm
It
saying.
is. Yeah, okay.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, they have to
So,
keep
yeah.
winning because the Texans could easily catch them for the division, and that would be one of the biggest shocks. And I was very off on the Titans. I thought this would be like one last ride, and it does
Hurrah.
kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of just seems like it's probably
It's
gonna
over.
be the start of a new era. Yeah, new phase in Titans history. But they do have a solid quarterback for the future. I think Levis looks pretty good.
Like,
But
people are like closing the
oh
lights on the tight ends and like telling them to go home, and they just they just won't go home. But yeah,
yeah,
it, that's kind of how it is. But okay, yeah. Anything else for AFC South? I thought this was like one of the least interesting divisions to me. Because
oh,
none of these
I think it's probably one of the most interesting.
now this year,
Yeah, yeah, because
this year. Okay, tell us about this year then.
we all said it was gonna be one of the worst divisions. I actually don't think it is. Um, I did a little bit. I did some grades, like a mid-season progress report, and I had the Texans graded as the highest in the entire league. I give them an A plus. They
Mhm.
seem to both have their quarterback for the future and their coach of the future. The team seems to have a really good vibe around them, and they're beating good teams. Like they're not just beating the lower teams. They beat the Bengals today pretty comprehensively. It would have been by a larger margin if CJ didn't throw his second interception of the year in a kind of a bad situation. But he's a rookie, and that was only a second interception. But yeah, to me, they're just compared to offseason expectations. I think they're the most impressive team in the entire league. And that's why I gave them an A plus. And then the Colts I gave, yeah, incomplete because it's very sad what
It's
happened with
tough.
Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, it
He
is. It's
looked so
tough.
good, but yeah, I don't think we can know anything about them right now, which sucks.
So you mentioned your grades. So then at the end of every division, I'll ask you for your grades for each team. So you gave
Okay,
the Texans an A plus. Give me Jaguars, Colts, and Titans. What were their scores or what grades?
so Titans I gave a C minus. I
Okay,
gave the Jaguars an
fair.
A. I gave the Jaguars an A minus. I may want to change that to B plus after today, but straddling
That's
that line.
also very fair. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Texans A plus. I would give it A plus plus if I could. Colts
And Colts
in,
versus incomplete.
incomplete. See if you forced my hand. I think they do have a good coach. Just we need to see Richardson, although he did look tremendous, and they did figure out the Jonathan Taylor situation. So there's positives there.
Okay, let's move to AFC West. This one is pretty cut and dry. So you see the
Yeah.
Chiefs. My question to you is: from it looks like 2016 onwards, the Chiefs have won the division. That's My question to you was 2016 Alex Smith's last year, or was that Mahomes' like first full year?
That sounds like it was one of Alex Smith's last years.
So basically, Alex Smith handed the reins off with a division win, and then basically since then, Mahomes has taken her home basically every single year.
Yeah, Alex
It's
Smith was 16 and 17 actually. And
Oh
then
wow,
18 he got hurt, or 18 he was in Washington, yeah.
okay, interesting. Yeah, so let's see. More credit to him. I just attributed all of this to Mahomes and Reed, but he got
It's
two of
Andy
them,
Reid, yeah.
and,
It's just Andy Reid.
and he Reed, yeah, a well-oiled machine. It's never in doubt. And then before then, you can kind of see Peyton in the Broncos. That's what I saw.
Yeah.
Chargers last win was 2009. I was just curious, like when did they win last? And it was 2009. And then the Raiders, I couldn't see anywhere in the foreseeable
I think
past.
it's like 2000 maybe.
Okay. So this one was like as I mentioned, pretty straightforward. What do you see about the AFC West? And obviously, Chiefs in pole position to win again this year.
I think it's a disappointing division. Um
You mean the
like
Chargers? You could just say the Chargers are disappointing. Like that's
oh
like
no, I'd say I'd even go the Chiefs are slightly disappointing. Their offense has not been as dynamic as it once was, and it is a big vulnerability when they get into the playoffs.
Mhm.
Their defense is elite, though. That's a new wrinkle that they haven't really had in the Mahomes era. So I'm curious how that'll pan out when we get into the colder months. But yeah, the Broncos, to me, yeah, the Broncos are not the most disappointing team in the division. So that's a major win for them. It's your Chargers. Your Chargers
Yeah,
are disgusting.
they're so bad. I don't know what it's gonna take. It's like they are literally the Clippers, and even if they have good players, they're gonna shit the bed in a massive way or like stumble at the finish line in any way possible. And on top of that, they make some like a lot of coaching decisions that make you like kind of go, huh? And all the while, my boy is just getting ransacked the entire game. So it's just not a good mixture of things going on there in San Diego, now Los Angeles.
Yeah. So from our season preview, there was a big polarity in what you nailed and what you whiffed on, and it's kind of funny
Okay,
because
tell me.
you nailed the Chiefs' offense regressing because of a lack of weapons. Like that was a good call. But then you also had a thing about Staley
God.
becoming like a big boy coach and learning how to manage games.
Oh God, that was foolish. Yeah.
It may have been the single worst miss from either one of our pods, but it's very funny to listen back to it because at the time none of us really questioned it. I mean, I believed a little more in the Chargers than they currently are. I thought missing the playoffs was a real possibility, and it kind of looks likely now, but
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
this
that was more
bad.
of a
This is
hope. It
yeah.
was a hope, but and I was projecting maybe a little too hard there. Um, and that's fair. I got to take my medicine on that one. Yeah, so AFC West, anything for this year? Otherwise, as I mentioned, Chiefs figure to win, Chargers figure are in a very tough position, and Broncos are finding themselves. Let's say that. What about the Raiders?
The Raiders are weird because I would have had them at like an F last week before they played their first game post firing McDaniels.
Mm-hmm.
But they seem to have a better spirit in the locker room with Antonio Pierce, their interim coach, and they've won two straight, I believe, under him. Granted, not against good competition, but at least they're winning games because they're not very good either. So it is what it is. But my favorite thing of the Raiders season so far has been how willing all of the players are to shit on Josh McDaniels as soon as he was out the door. You don't normally see that in sports, but they are not holding back and letting everybody know how much they hated him.
Yeah, not well liked. Yeah, the Raiders are a weird one. They always seem to hover again around. Like in the recent era, they've hovered around 500 with the Carr era,
Yeah,
and now they have good weapons, but then they're kind of missing a key part, right? Which
yeah.
is Jimmy Garoppolo is their quarterback. So,
Well,
I mean, yeah, go
they
ahead.
have yeah, it's gonna be Aiden McConnell going forward. I think the rookie. He's
Okay,
okay, but he was like a third round pick. I don't know what you can expect from a third round rookie.
yeah, you can. Isn't that Tom Brady? You
Tom
expect
was
Tom Brady?
six. He was
Oh
sixth
my god.
round. Dak was third round rookie, who was phenomenal. And Russell
What
also was.
what up,
Wilson.
Purdy? Isn't Purdy third?
Purdy was the last pick in the draft in the seventh round. Yeah.
Oh my god, that's even worse than I thought. Yeah. Okay, let's finish with AFC West, then we'll take a break. So the Patriots' dominance basically up till 3 years ago, and then Bills kind of take over. It's been two teams in the last 10 years, but this year Dolphins are leading. Bills are playing. Bill, I don't know what to make of the Bills. Sometimes they look really good, sometimes they look really bad. Jets are again trying to hang in there. And then Patriots are shit.
Yeah.
I didn't ask your grades for the last division.
Oh,
Sebastian,
okay.
we'll
I
deal
can
with
do
them
that.
both at the end.
That sounds good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll do them both at the end. Okay,
And I can
so
go
tell me
back on.
about.
I can go back and do my AFC North ones too, but they're pretty straightforward.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a good idea. So tell me now, Dolphins. You told me about my is it Mike McDaniel's, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know much about him, and I didn't pay much attention to the coach whenever I watched the Dolphins. But then you told me like he's like a nerd, and he just is like who speaks very plainly. And then ever since I like heard that, I took a more a bigger interest in the Dolphins, and I in their coach in particular. And I started watching all of the press conferences, and he's exactly how you
I
said.
love
Like
him so
he's like
much.
he's just like so dry and like doesn't give a fuck. And he has like this, is it a Minnesotan accent or like I don't know, like I don't know what the where he's from, but he's like this weird accent as well. And I don't know if he's has some,
From
I don't know if I could
Colorado.
say. Okay, Colorado. Okay,
Yeah.
a mountainous people, but yeah, I love him, and he's a great coach. And I know he got flack last year for like letting Tua get hit and stuff, but they're doing really well. So tell me about the Dolphins, and we don't need to talk about the Patriots, but the Jets and the Bills in the middle are interesting prospects. So let's talk about those three teams.
So, the Dolphins, I think they're definitely a legitimate threat, although they haven't really been able to beat a an elite team yet. They're getting closer. Um, and they maybe not, they maybe won't win the Super Bowl or anything, but I think they're a threat to win a playoff game. And I definitely think the division is theirs to lose at this point because Buffalo is on the downward
Just one game
slope.
back, but not looking good.
Their schedule
Right.
is so tough. Also, Buffalo's. I think they have the hardest remaining
Okay.
schedule, and they're not looking very good. That's also true. And I don't think the Jets are like a threat to win the division, but the Jets have been as good as you could hope for, honestly, after the Rodgers injury. I'd say it's not pretty, but like they're hanging around. Their defense is keeping them in games. It's just a bummer to that fan base, I think, because they see it and they realize if we had Rodgers, this is a Super Bowl team. And it's hard to argue because their defense is so good.
I just felt so bad for like I like Aaron Rodgers, even though other people don't, but I felt so bad for the Jets fans. It like
Yeah,
just the minute it's like everything was set up for them perfectly to have at least a fun season, and just literally the first play or like the first drive, it just happens. It's just like how does that happen? But somehow they're hanging around. We talked about the Bills just sucking the air out of life in football, and then Dolphins doing really well with the dynamic wide receiver core, right? And Tua
yeah.
is a great offensive tool for McDaniel's. Um, okay, so that kind of finishes the AFC. Why don't you give us our grades for the three divisions we didn't start? We missed let's start with go back one
Uh,
to AFC West. So give us the grades
North, I
here.
believe. I think we started with North that I didn't give, so I'll do Northwest and then East. Does that sound good?
Yeah, you can do that. It's fine too.
All right, for sure. So North, I gave the Bengals. It was an F, but now it's a B. I think they look
Okay,
pretty solid. Ravens,
that's what they alternate between being an F and a B, basically. So
yeah,
yeah,
that's very true. Ravens, I had as an A minus. I guess I'll stick with it,
that's fair
despite
too.
today's loss. Yeah, I think they look like one of the top contenders, and
Best
Lamar's in
point
the
differential in the league by a
yeah.
significant margin.
I think that's boosted by like two big blowout games, but still, it's impressive. They when they're
Doesn't that also mean
yeah
though that like their losses are close and their wins are
yeah.
big? So yeah, okay, go ahead.
Um, Browns I got at B minus,
Okay,
just because the Watson situation is so shaky, and Steelers I have as a this is gonna be such a hater thing to say. I'd give them an F. I'll give them a D, despite the winning, just because I can't. There's no way this team does anything once they steal a playoff berth. They're just wasting space and wasting TV airtime every week.
yeah, that's I mean, they're 6-3. Every time I look at it, it just doesn't make sense to me. But yeah,
Yeah, like
see, I mean, same
realistically,
thing.
it's realistically it's probably like a B plus because their coaching staff has done a really good job. But I just hate watching them, so I can't be nice.
That's fair. Let's go down to you gave Jacksonville a grade. You gave AFC South. So let's go
Yeah,
to West, and
West.
then you said finish with East.
Yeah,
Okay,
sure, sounds good.
give us West.
Uh, Raiders is a D minus, up from an F because it's never good when you're the first team to fire your coach and GM, but they've looked better since they did it, so they're not totally failing. Then the Broncos, I'll give a C minus. I think Russ has proven he's not a total lost cause, but they're just not that great. But who knows? Chargers is a D minus. It could be an F, but just because of Herbert, I think you can't fail them totally. And Chiefs, I'm giving a B because the offense has regressed, but they're still one of the best teams in the conference, and their defense is pretty elite. So yeah, you can't give them an A because you have to base it on past years. I feel like and contrast it.
Okay, and finally AFC East.
Patriots F, pretty self-explanatory, I think.
Yes, F for
Mac,
hubris and
uh,
damn pride. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, Mac is not the guy. I think we can say, unfortunately. Um, Bills is a C. They don't look like a legitimate contender. They've had a lot of injuries, and it's just going to be a disappointing year, I think. And it might be,
Just not this year. Just
yeah,
not this year.
yeah. Dolphins, B plus could be an A, I guess, but
Yeah.
I think you have to wait until they beat one of these elite teams before you can give them an A. They look good though. Like I love what I'm seeing.
I would say A for them because everyone at the beginning of the year probably had Jets, and then when Jets imploded with the Aaron Rodgers injury, they probably had Bills, and then now out of
That's a good point.
more than halfway through, look who it is. It's the Dolphins. So I would give them an A, but B plus is also fair. So
Yeah, it's just the way I mean, they were competitive in some of the games they've lost to the best teams, but I think people are just like throwing this narrative out there constantly about them like are they frauds? They haven't beat anybody who's legitimate. And so maybe
we'll
that
see.
seeped into my thinking. I hope they're legitimate. And then the Jets I gave a B plus because the expectations really plummeted through the floor when Rodgers got hurt and somehow they're still alive and they're in most of these games when they're losing even. They're not really shitting the bed.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Jets somehow are scraping together wins with Wilson. Any win with the Wilson, you have to give him an A plus for that. So that counteracts
Yeah.
their 5 losses, and so there you go. So that's fair. So that's the AFC American Football Conference for this year, along with a little bit of history. We'll come back with NFC. Okay, we're back with NFC this time. I'm going to start with NFC North. So Detroit's in the lead, riding the Dan Campbell hype that was taking the spot from Minnesota last year. But historically, this has been a Green Bay, aka Aaron Rodgers division. He owns division. There was some blips early, like in 2017, 2018, 2015, where the Vikings and Bears got in. But for all intents and purposes, it's Green Bay's division. This year, as I mentioned, the Lions are leading. So tell me about the Lions and why the Vikings have stepped back or regressed a little bit.
Um, the Lions, yeah, they've definitely exceeded even like the loftiest expectations. Like I thought they'd be good, but they look like a serious contender. Although they have some games where they get blown out, like that Ravens game wasn't necessarily the most encouraging. Um, but they have an elite receiver in Amon-Ra St. Brown. Goff looks very good. Laporta, their rookie tight end, is definitely a future building block, and their defense has been really, really strong, which was the thing that killed them in the first half last year. So I think this is pretty much a wrapped up division. Although I don't know what the records are off the top of my head. I think the Vikings are sneakily
They're six
still
and
around.
four,
Yeah, they're still around. And the Lions are what, 7-3, or are they? It's 7-2,
seven
right?
and two.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So the Vikings, I mean, I really love what the Vikings have turned their season into because it was such a shit show at the beginning. I thought they were dead. And then Kirk started playing phenomenally, actually. Probably the
and then
best
he's
football
out.
he's ever played. Gets the terrible injury, which sucked for him because it was like
He needs
he was.
money, right? He
I
needs a
don't think
contract.
I don't know that he needs money, but yeah, he
Yeah,
does. He will need a new contract next year. And just in general, like you hate to see somebody who's having a career peak all of a sudden have it taken away from them.
yeah, a
Um,
good, pious young man like himself.
yes, but now they are actually an even better story with Mr. Josh Dobbs, the aerospace
Yeah,
engineering major who interned
he's
at NASA.
crazy.
He's fucking brilliant. Like, I'm very biased because I've been struggling in fantasy football uh, with quarterback play since Anthony Richardson went down. And I picked up Dobbs last week, and he had more points in the first half today than I had from my QB in like 7 weeks. So, big fan of Mr. Dobbs.
Some of his runs when he breaks out of the pocket are like he just gets 10 more yards than you think he's
Yeah,
supposed to get.
exactly. Yeah, it doesn't look
So
like he's going to get anything and turns it into a 10-yard game. So I think
really good at that. Yeah.
they're one of the more impressive stories in the league right now, I'd say, just because they look dead and now they're on this tremendous winning streak. And yeah, it's just very un-Vikings like, if anything.
So they figure they were going to fight with the Seahawks and Cowboys for a wild card spot, right? That's basically what's going to happen here.
I think so I think we're kind of, I don't know, I guess I shouldn't say we're a lock. I think the Vikings are kind of in the contention for that seventh one, whereas Seahawks and Cowboys are more solidly in position to claim a wild card spot. But yeah, I guess if the Vikings, because the Vikings do look more solid than a lot of these other teams, they may also, the 7 teams may be decided fairly early.
Okay. So do you have grades for us for this one?
Yeah, I do. So I gave the Packers a D. It started off kind of fun, but I think it's kind of safe to say Jordan Love is not the quarterback of the future.
It
Uh,
was it was a C minus, and then the teacher took a second review, and then like, oh, this is a failing grade, basically. Like, yeah,
yeah, basically. Their whole team has a lot of work that needs to be done.
so
They're
that if they're a
yeah.
D, then what are the Bears?
Oh, the Bears are an F, man.
Okay, yeah, fair,
Yeah,
yeah.
because uh, they still don't know if Fields is the guy. I don't think anybody does, but they're probably not going to see that out regardless because either they're going to be bad enough for the number one overall pick or the Panthers are going to be, and that they own the Panthers pick. So,
Oh wow. So they
yeah,
should. So they'll
that
have one
Thursday
and
night
two.
game, yeah, they'll have. Well, I
Wow.
don't know if they'll have 1-2 because I don't know that the Bears will be bad enough to end up with the second worst record. They could
but
be.
possibly
Yeah,
one in a top five pick, right?
yeah. That seems very likely. Yeah. Um,
Crazy.
that's why that Thursday night game last week was very funny because it was very win-win for the Bears. Like either our pick ourself gets worse, or we beat the Panthers and our pick also gets.
I
We
see.
also get a better pick. Yeah,
Shitball. Yeah.
yeah. So the Panthers were really fucked there. But yeah, so I don't think they're gonna see the Fields era out. He'll probably be on a new team, and maybe it'll go better for him there. But then, yeah. So the next
It won't.
grade, yeah,
Newsflash, it
maybe.
won't.
I think he could. I don't think he looked
I
good until he
dude,
got hurt this year.
wasn't it me who was like hyping it up and saying like, oh, he has like a good progression in all of his stats, and then I just was so disappointed by all of like what's happening this year, and there's no
Started off
like
poorly,
growth. So I don't know.
but
I've kind of lost confidence,
the
but we'll
last two
see.
weeks before he got hurt, he actually did start to look good with in the air, not just running the ball. Like he looked pretty good as a passer. So we'll see. Um, the Vikings, it was an F, and then they turned it into a B plus.
Yeah,
Been
I
very,
think that's right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's been very impressive. We already talked about that. And then the Lions, it's an A because people had lofty expectations and they've actually exceeded them.
I think that's spot on too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's move to NFC South. Or anything else on our wins from NFC North? You're laughing, so I assume what?
I was a bit off. I think I was mainly me, but I was pretty off on the year Kirk was going to have. Um, I was skeptical that it would be anything, and I actually think he was having like the best year of his career. And the Vikings were going to have a tough decision after the season until he got hurt,
Yeah,
and now I think the decision's been made for them.
yeah. It's just terrible timing for the guy. Kind of
Yeah,
feel bad for him. Okay. Moving to NFC South. So Tampa Bay's won the last 2 years. This is the Brady effect, right? And
sort of.
then, well, at least for the first year, and then Saints basically dominated, and then Falcons and Panthers handed it off at the beginning of the decade. So Saints was Breeze, right? I assume that's
Yeah, Breeze and Payton
Breeze and Payton. Yeah, Sean Payton. And then tell me about Tampa Bay's. Why? How did Tampa Bay win last year?
the division was god awful, and it was the last Brady year. Yeah.
Okay, so no, I mean it's pretty straightforward. 1-2. What's your read on the NFC South?
Oh my! It is as bad as we said it was going to be, and arguably it's much worse. It's so bad, man. There's not the Falcons are maybe the most enjoyable team to watch in that division, and they're not really that enjoyable to watch. It's just everything else sucks ass. Like really, I can't remember
Are
a
they still
division this
running
bad.
out Desmond Ritter?
Yeah, they switched to Heineke, and then I think
Okay, yeah.
today they may have switched back to Ritter because I had it on one of my screens and I saw at one point Desmond Ritter touchdown, and I was like, "What? Where's
Okay.
where's Taylor Heineke?" But I
That's the
wasn't. It
alert
was
you.
yeah, it
That's
was
the great alert you.
it was like Falcons Cardinals, so it wasn't exactly high priority. Um, but yeah, I don't really know what's going on there. That division, I could live without watching any of those teams play ever again.
Yeah, it's pretty boring. And you mentioned Panthers are in pole position for the first pick in the draft.
That they don't know.
So give it. Oh, yeah, they don't know. It's like futility all around. Yeah, when you put it like that. So give us the grades, I suppose. Not much else to talk about here.
I have the Panthers as an F. They don't know. They've done nothing to help Bryce and to show if Bryce is a guy or not. Like the whole team just is terrible. It's just a
So
waste of a
basically,
year.
a thrown away year because, like you said, they're not getting information on their QB, and they're putting him out to get chopped up
Yeah,
and hurt. So it's actually
they
just
might.
a
Yeah, they might
lose
be
lose.
breaking him. They might be
Yeah,
breaking him.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay.
Saints is an F. Uh, they were supposed to be the class of the division and win it. Maybe it wasn't going to be pretty, but they were definitely supposed to be winning this division. And I don't even know if they're leading right now, and their offense is god awful. Um, the Falcons are a C. just because they're somehow winning games despite having one of the worst quarterback situations in the league. And the Buccaneers, I'll go D plus, maybe C minus D plus, because
D
I thought
minus,
it was
yeah.
I thought it was going to completely fall through the through the floor, but they've kind of like hung around. They're not terrible; they're just mediocre, maybe a little worse.
Okay. Yeah. And just to give you a quick history of it again, so Falcons and Panthers at the beginning. It was Panthers was who was the QB during that era?
Cam,
So I'm from Cam. Oh yes, yes, you're right.
yeah,
I forgot. So Cam's era, and then you kind of go into Saints and Peyton and Bree dominating for 4 years straight, and then you finish with Brady. Okay, let's move to NFC West. This one was a toss up the entire way, but what I saw was you could see the start of Pete Carroll's
yeah.
Seattle era, and then you saw the transition to McVay and his Rams, and then now in the last 3 years, last 5 years, 49ers figured to win three of them, and then Rams and Seahawks pick up one apiece. So a very competitive division for the last 10 years, a lot of runs by different teams, and Cardinals don't really get to play at all.
No.
So tell me about the NFC West.
Um, NFC West. It's been it's been a good division. I think it is very similar to the AFC West actually, except not as dramatic. Like I'd say the two teams we thought were the class of the division, they're still the class of the division, but they're not maybe as solid looking as we thought. The Niners, maybe they will be because they're now seem to be healthier after their bye week. But that 3 game losing streak was not really the best look for a team everybody thought were world beaters. And Seattle, I don't really think they're in the upper echelon of NFC teams. They're just kind of a wild card team that's going to lose round one. But it's an okay division. No team is as bad as any of the teams in the NFC South, probably. Maybe the Cardinals, but now that Kyler's back, I'd actually say if the Cardinals were in the NFC South, they'd win that division by like 5 games.
Okay, yeah. When you put it like that, Niners are an interesting one. The Shanahan comes in and he basically manages to create the Debo new position, and now he's made something out of Purdy, and his disciple right is just down the road with the Rams. He manages to win one before him. Um, so there must be like a he's due. I think the Niners are due, and they look really strong. They, as we mentioned, they spanked the Jaguars today. Um, and to me, the Seahawks, they after Russ left, you would think they would need to retool and take some time to find themselves like a lot of these other teams and determine the next quarterback. They pick up Gino, and just like that, they're competing for the division for the last 2 years. So kudos to them. And your boy, your former coach, is proven to be, I think, a pretty good coach, even though he made one terrible error that will probably haunt him for the rest of his career. Is that
I still
fair?
defend that decision. I get what he
I
was
mean,
doing.
I have no strong opinions either way, but he he in the players' eyes, he probably lost a lot of respect, right? He
He
didn't
did.
before that. He seemed almost like untouchable, but after that, and especially because two of his players are so outspoken against him, kind of hurts. But yes, this is a toss-up division, and what we see now is that the 49ers have kind of taken a whole stronghold in the last couple of years, but Seahawks and Rams on any given year can compete.
Yeah, that's fair. The Rams probably have a little work
Anything?
to do.
Yes, now because they
Yeah,
kind of I don't know what's the best way to say this. There isn't a better way to say this. They've shot their wad contractually for that
they like
one championship win, and so they're kind of done now.
they mortgaged their entire future for one Super Bowl.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's politically correct way to say it. Yes.
Yeah, that's the common way.
So um, so let's move to NFC East, your division. You know intricately and
Do
very
you want me to
well.
just give grades really quick for this? They're pretty
Oh yeah,
easy, but
yes,
yeah.
yes. NFC West grades, please. Thank you.
So 49ers B plus.
Yeah,
They're the class of the conference when they're healthy, but that just is an unrealistic expectation with what we know about that team. Seahawks B minus. Don't really appear to be a legitimate contender. Geno's not as good as he was last year, but they have some nice wins. They'll beat bad teams and then kind of get smoked by elite teams. Rams, C minus. They're better than
that's
expected, but
generous.
okay, I had a D and I thought that was harsh, but I
I
can go
think
back to the D.
D plus, C minus is probably where I would have them. So anything there is fine. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
you
like
kind of pretty close to where I had them.
uh Puka is a revelation. I think that kind of saves their
Yes,
whole
it
season.
is.
Yeah.
Puka time. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. But besides that, it's pretty bleak. They were like there was hope early in the season and then Stafford inevitably he gets hurt and now
Correct.
they're kind of just like there to play out the season with no hope. And the Cardinals I gave a C because even before Kyler came back, they were not really getting blown out, and they do appear to have a really solid coach in Gannon. So, like, I assume what they're trying to do is have Kyler play out this season, maybe raise his trade value, and then trade him and draft a quarterback uh, in the offseason. Or maybe they'll just keep Kyler because Kyler looked good today in his first game back. So we'll see. They seem
So
to be open to it.
my question to you is: do the Rams keep their pick if they basically tank out this year?
Let's see. I
I'm just
don't
putting
know
you on
that.
the spot here. It's
Uh, the
otherwise, is there any incentive to be good?
I don't know that they own their pick this year, but if they do own their pick this year, so no, there isn't really a incentive
So
to
shouldn't they
be
be
good.
going for a QB replacement here?
I don't know
Is
that they'll be
Stafford
bad
already
enough.
cooked?
Yeah, Stafford is
Okay.
he's just older and injury prone. The Rams haven't made a first round pick since they took Jared Goff in 2016, so probably time for them to
Wow,
make a draft pick. It's
that's
probably the healthy
amazing.
thing to do.
Like,
Yeah, probably
so
the
like
healthy thing to do.
that's to me that's what they need is they need a QB on the rookie scale to like they have
Yeah,
so heavy everywhere else. A good QB on a rookie scale would make them very dangerous. So
I they
something to look
seem
out for.
to me that they're in this situation where they're not going to be good for a few years, and Cup and Donald, maybe they just want to keep them for continuity, but it wouldn't be the worst thing to maybe trade them in the offseason to recoup some draft
Ooh,
picks and start a full rebuild. One or the other, maybe
wouldn't
both.
wouldn't Donald just retire?
He may, but maybe he still wants to play. I mean, he's still playing really well.
That's fair. Okay. So do you gave your grades for this, right? So now we have to move to NFC East. As I mentioned, your division, you know very
Yep.
well. You have very strong opinions about some of the teams, so I'll let you kind of take it. Tell me about NFC East.
Well, uh, we were talking about the history earlier, and I think you saw that it's pretty much been back and forth for like a decade. I think every team has won the division once in the last decade. I'm not sure if the Commanders have. That's the one I'm dubious of.
Washington's won it 3 times in the last 10 years.
Yeah, okay, I thought so. Um, those were some bad years, I think, for the division. To be fair, but yeah,
The one who
it doesn't
hasn't
shock.
actually is the Giants. So we're just kind of clipping at the end of any time they would win. I don't know when the Giants won. Did they win during the Eli years?
No, they. I think both times they won the Super Bowl, they were a wild card team. So I'm actually not
So
sure
yeah,
if
it's
that's the
probably a
case.
long time since they've won.
It's probably been like 15 years or so. Yeah, maybe a little less, but that's kind of crazy. Uh, so this year the division is pretty clear cut. I think. I think the Eagles will probably end up winning the division. Although the Cowboys are still in the mix. If the Cowboys can show something against one of the better teams, I'd feel a little more confident saying that. Although I'd say the loss to the Eagles was them showing something. It just didn't end with a win. But I think there's two serious teams here. The Commanders may somehow steal a wild card berth, but it's not looking very likely. They're probably just like middle of the pack and miss the playoffs. And then I think we have the worst team in football in our division also.
Damn, it's harsh.
I think
Even
it's
more
very
than
hard to say.
even more than the Panthers.
Well, now that they've lost Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor, I'd say, yeah, they're probably the worst team in football, and it's not particularly close. And they
Yes,
seem to hate
and
each
then their
other.
New York team just ravaged, and their New York football team just ravaged by high expectations, and then just not even getting anywhere close to them at all. Like just so far from where they thought they were going to be. So it's kind of comical in a tragic way. Um, yeah. So Giants at the bottom, 2-8. Commanders 4-6. Cowboys 6-3, Philly 8-1, and the history was, as we talked about, Philly won last year, Cowboys, Washington, Phillies, Cowboys, Phillies, Cowboys. So basically, Philly and Cowboys kind of handed it off. The Doug Peterson years, I suppose, and then
Yeah.
your boy who's now doing Fox halftime, Miles Garrett. Is it
Oh no, he
Fox or
does. He
something?
does NBC. He does NBC pregame and halftime,
NBC. Okay,
and
yeah.
Notre Dame games, and I hate him a lot for that. Because when Notre
We'll
Dame
talk
was
about Notre
beating,
Dame later. Don't you worry about it.
oh no, I got.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. I so just a side note: when Notre Dame was beating the shit out of my Trojans on NBC, I decided that I wish very bad things upon Jason Garrett because he was just when your
No,
team's
not
getting,
Miles Garrett. Jason Garrett. Yeah,
yeah, I love
yeah.
Miles Garrett. When your team's getting the shit kicked out of you, there's no more annoying voice than Chris Collinsworth's nepo baby Jack and Jason Garrett on the call. Pretty much made the whole situation much worse and made me very angry.
Yeah. So
But
I'll let
yeah,
you go.
that's a
I
side
mean,
note.
uh, so that's the NFC East history. Sieves, as you mentioned, we talked about your boy, and then my question to you was Washington. They won 3 years. Do you any of these they must have like been etched in your memory in stone. So do you remember any of these and what happened to the why
Let's
they
let,
won?
let me take a look at this because I actually don't remember it that vividly.
Oh, okay.
So
Maybe you subconsciously like blotted it out. Maybe that's the way you did it. But so it was
so
2020 they won last, and then 2015. We can do those two. How did they win this?
2020, what they were 7-9 and they won the division in 2020. That was a really really bad year. I do remember that being like an embarrassingly bad year, and I want to say the last game of the season was what got Doug Peterson fired because he could have won the game or the Eagles had like this small backdoor chance of making the playoffs, but Doug decided at halftime to pull everybody, and he said the reason was he wanted to get
Oh,
a
I
look at
remember
their like
this. Yeah.
third string quarterback and it was prime time. It was a Sunday night football last week of the season,
Mhm.
and it ultimately cost Doug Peterson his job because he was very smug about the whole situation. And it was really really funny and people were really outraged. Actually, I think what could have happened was we could have made the playoffs if the Eagles had beat the Redskins at that time. Or I think, my
I
bad, they
see.
were Washington football team that year.
Mhm.
In 15 was Kirk Cousins. Okay, with RG3 that makes sense. And then I think 12 was the amazing RG3 year, so
Okay.
that one definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, crazy that RG3 was a decade ago. Feels like it was so much longer.
More than anything, you see like when a great quarterback comes or a quarterback has a great year. Let me rephrase that. If a quarterback has a great year, you can see the effect it has on division winning the division.
Yeah.
And when coaches come and they start making their team and their era and establishing themselves, you can also see that very clearly as well in the last 10 years. So let's get your grades for NFC East, Sebastian.
So this one also kind of straightforward. I think I'll give the Commanders a C minus. Their
Okay.
offense looks better than expected, but they're kind of signaling that they don't really think much of their team. I'd say when they trade away Montez Sweat and Chase Young, like their two best pass
Mhm.
rushers at the deadline, kind of feels like they see a rebuild in the future or maybe a retool. So yeah, they're not the most interesting story. Um, the Cowboys, I gave a B. It's very hard to gauge where they are because they look like the best team of all time when they're playing bad teams, and then they look
Yeah.
less good when they're playing the best teams. But like I said, that Eagles road loss was probably like their most telling performance because they proved that they could go to a tough environment and hang, unlike the Niners game. Eagles,
Yeah.
I gave a B plus. Uh, they haven't really looked as scary as last year. Uh, their defense is good against the run, but you can definitely pass against them. And I think the brain drain that they had with their coordinators leaving in the offseason is still being felt because, yeah, like I said, their offense, I don't see it a lot of times. They're a one man show with AJ Brown. And then the Giants, I gave an F minus minus minus. It's the lowest grade in the entire league to me. I can't recall seeing a team that's this big of a shit show in a very long time. They may even exceed the Broncos from last year with Nathaniel Hackett. Um,
That's
and
bad. This is bad
yeah, like
watching.
they from week one when they played the Cowboys, their offensive line was an absolute joke. Like Daniel Jones was getting crushed, and then they lost him to a was it a concussion or a shoulder? I think it was like a concussion. They lost him for like a week or two. Comes back, the offensive line is still bad. He gets his AC he tears his ACL. Like, it's just irresponsible at this point. Like, they don't the team seems to have given up. They do not seem to be a very strong-willed group of individuals. They don't have very much talent. Um, in the preseason preview, you highlighted Evan Neal, and he was supposed to be like a revolutionary player for their offensive line. He's actually been really, really bad, and their fan base hates him a lot. And his coach seems to hate him, and he just doesn't seem to really care. And I believe is he the guy who said the thing about the workers in New York? Yeah, he made fun of
I can remember this. Yeah.
he
You can't
made
do
a
that,
comment.
dude. You
Yeah, he
can't.
made a comment about why would I care about the opinions of sheep? What do these people do for their work? They probably flip burgers and sell hot dogs or whatever. And he basically caused the entire city to hate him forever. And it also caused one of the all-time great New York radio rants that I've ever heard, where the man was red in his face. I don't know the individual's name. I'll find it and send it to you later. But he
Okay.
basically was sweaty, red, and screaming at Evan Neal and said, "He'd be off my team. He wouldn't be a Giant anymore." It was like that's what people want listen to New York radio for. I believe it
Yeah, you're
reminded me
right.
of
That's true. Yes, yes.
that.
So, you gave your scores. My only quibble was that I think that the team with the best the best record in the league should get an A, and their Phillies at 8-1. I know it's tough
That's
for you to,
fair.
but
It's just
even if they're
because
not playing to the best,
yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
no, they're still finding ways to win. You might be right. I just have very high expectations of them. I think that's why I had them at a B plus. It's not out of a place of hate, actually. Like I don't hate this Eagles team nearly as much as I've hated some in the past. I hate saying that. I should hate them, but I respect them a lot. They have a lot of players I really like, but I just think I hold them to a very high standard.
No, I understand it. And you hold this. I am sure you hold this division to a very high standard as well. So
Sort of.
it was at least
Yeah.
maybe not as much now, but
Well,
historically it's been one of the best. You have to say that. Even going past
like
10 years, a lot of the great teams have come from this division. No,
the last like 5 years, I'd say it actually was pretty bad, except for last year. It was like I think
Phillies resurgence. Yeah.
we had we had three playoff teams last year, and the Commanders weren't totally bad. Um, and it was like, oh, the East is back on top after everybody shit on us for years. But this year, it seems like it's fair to shit on the Giants in particular.
Yeah. Okay. We'll end our NFC preview on that note. It's okay to shit on the Giants.
Well, I mean,
uh,
at one point the season series score with the Cowboys was 82-0, I think. Like
oh. Okay.
it ended 89-17 because the Giants
Mhm.
got like 17 garbage time points. But you should never be losing 2 games 82-0 at any point to a division rival. That's just like humiliation.
Did you have any other like wins or losses comments from NFC?
Um, I was right that Dak's interceptions were an aberration. I'll just say that. Knock on wood, of
Okay.
course. But
Yeah. Knock
um,
on wood.
uh, the other one that I thought was kind of funny was where was it? No, I think it was we already mentioned it with the Brandon Staley. I think what stood out to me was just we already touched on it, but we really, really undersold how bad the NFC South was, and we already said it was going to be really bad, and I'd say that was pretty bad. And
So
also,
even though we
yeah,
said it was going to be bad, we were not. We didn't anticipate the levels of shit we would be hitting. Right? Is that what you're
yeah,
saying? Okay.
yeah, and you were correctly more down on the Commanders than I was because I was saying they're like a potential wild card team, which could still happen, but I think you were pretty much on the money with that one.
I'll take the wins where I can get them. Speaking of which, I think my victory versus Johnny is complete in fantasy, a
Oh,
5-3.
uh, speaking, yeah, gloat on your victory. I have something very funny to say about Johnny in fantasy.
Okay, let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll do top five Bool or bust. Anything else on that on our NFL halfway report? Seems I think we did good. Hit a lot of
Yeah, we
good
did good.
points. Okay. Okay, just finished the NFC halfway. NFC and AFC halfway reports. Just checking in on NFL, and now we are moving on to top five and Bool or bust. Top five this week was from Sebastian, but before that, he wanted to. We were talking. We finished the last segment talking about my win over Johnny. He was calling me out in group chat, telling me my team was shit, and some guy got a 5-3 versus him. So I wonder what that makes his team. But go ahead, go ahead.
So we had Johnny on last week, and he was quite boastful about beating me, and he beat me by 1 steal. And today, Johnny messaged me out of the blue, and he's like, "Did they stat correct us to a tie?" And they did stat correct us to a tie. And
Oh, damn! I did not see that. Wow.
I didn't see it either, but he alerted me, and I went through the tapes to see the stat that gave me the tie, and it was Trey Jones driving to the basket late in the third quarter against the Raptors, the fabled Raptors Spurs game that we talked about last week.
Mm-hmm.
And he loses the ball on the way up for a layup. And initially, they had ruled that OG got a rebound from that play, but actually, because he didn't end up shooting the ball, he just lost it on his way up. It turned
Should be a
into a
steal.
steal. Turned into a
Okay.
steal for OG. And so, but you know that game track that NBA does where you can click on the play to look at the replay of the play? You actually can't do it for that steal. So I had to go through the full game replay and find it. And I found it and I watched it like 6 times in a row.
Is that why Johnny was originally at the top of her
He was tied
comp,
with me, yeah.
and then now we moved down because of that? I
Yes.
see. Okay. I hate when they stat correct, dude, and
I love it.
yeah,
It's
now you
excellent.
do.
Stat corrections are uh, one of the great joys of life, and these people don't get paid enough.
But yeah, uh, they're doing God's work.
Yes, it's very important.
Just want to say though that Jokic had a fantastic game today. Um,
His teammates
yeah,
didn't, though.
36, 21, and 11. That's pretty good, man. On 50%
No, he was,
shooting,
yeah.
100%. is
He was
amazing.
great.
So that's what basically secured the win. Okay, let's move to top five. Let's do top five first. This was yours. You said most hated teams, right?
Yes.
Any background or just building off last week's Venom?
Um, it's just felt appropriate. Uh, there was something that inspired it, but I'm struggling to remember what it is at this moment.
No problem.
It'll
So
probably
do you
come
want
to
me
me
to
at some
start,
point.
or
Yeah,
are you
you
going
can
to
go
start?
first. You can go first. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll start with I have a list of 7 or 8, and now I'm plucking them down to five. So let's see. I know what 2 and 1 are. Um, okay, I'll start with five. United. Uh, Building off last week with Anthony. I enjoy so much when they lose, and like you told me yourself, Sebastian, when you watch those YouTube, when you go into YouTube and you just see all the reactions and them shitting on Manchester United, it's just a great feeling and very
Yes.
comical to me. And on top of that, I just don't like a lot of their players. Two in particular were Bruno and Anthony, um, and Rashford too. To be honest, there's a lot of players I don't. Luke Shaw, I don't like. So, and they had, I think another thing that's not really talked about is that a lot of their players make their way into punditry, uh,
Yes.
and and so they kind of dictate what the stories are and what perceptions of teams and other teams such as Arsenal. So don't like that as well. So I've been United at five. At four, I have the Clippers. I lol at them. Every time they lose and spend more money and trade for another player, it just makes me laugh. Um, no matter what they do, I just think they will always fail. I don't know why, and there's no basis or reason. It just seems like God or Mother Earth or the cosmic beings, whoever's out there, has determined the Clippers shall not succeed, and it makes me funny and it makes me laugh. Excuse me. And when I go on to, I think I told you, Sebastian, like when I went on to the Clippers subreddit a couple of times, it just seems like they're so obsessed with us, man. They're so obsessed with us. Like everything is like in relation to the Lakers. Like I don't think it's that scene from Mad Men. We don't think about them at all, really. But
They think we're
they,
obsessed with them.
yeah, exactly. Our rival is like the Celtics, and we'll talk about. I'm bringing them
Yes.
up later, but so United at five, Clippers at four. At three, I thought I should have a college football team, and so there's three I was kind of juggling around. Um, in addition to the number two one, so one was Utah, obviously Arizona, and then Alabama because I
Love
think
those guys.
Nick Saban is Nick Saban is Satan, and he's just like he started off this whole generation of SEC dominance. So and it's too much to Oregon's dismay, and also a lot of other teams on the West Coast. So I think I will have to go with Arizona and Utah. Fuck a lot of plans up as well. Alabama. I'll go Alabama. Yeah, I gave my reasons already.
Oh.
So Alabama.
Oh.
I know. Alabama at three. They're more symbol for SEC. So like SEC teams, I think. But yeah. Um, two. I'm going Notre Dame. I
Yes.
I just hate them so much. Like everything about them. From was their coach Charlie Weiss or something like that
Years ago, yeah.
years ago. I just looking at him on the sideline. And then like so much about them. And even when my dad, like I didn't know anything about Oregon. Like my dad was a USC fan because he went there for grad school, and so watching the Reggie Bush years and like them playing Notre Dame and stuff, I just hated Notre Dame. So Notre Dame at two, and I messed up, dude. Damn. Okay,
Yeah.
I have to take back the Alabama one, and I'll put Notre
Good.
Dame at three. Yeah, okay, yeah. And then because I have two ones that cannot be left off the list. Celtics at two. I don't think I need to say anything about this. It's Laker fan. Celtics hate them. And then number one, the team that really gets me going, I think Steves will agree, is Tottenham. Just I hate Tottenham so much. And they even when they're bad, they're just like a thorn in our side. And then when they're good, they're insufferable like they are now. Um, I hate a lot of their players. There's some players I have respect for, but most of their players are just huge busts. And the biggest one being Romero right now. I think Romero is just my least favorite player on their team right now. So Tottenham, anytime we beat them, anytime they fail, anytime they screw up, it makes me laugh. And it's been so many years since they won a trophy, and I just keep hoping. I hope it keeps going. So that's my top five. Honorable mention City. Honorable mention Arizona, Utah, Patriots too. I guess
They're too pathetic to hate, I feel, at this point.
this year, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's just more like it's really. I don't know if I can say this, but when I look at Bill, it just looks like my grandfather when he was like sundowning, and I'm just like, there you go, young
Uh,
man. Yeah.
uh, this is also inappropriate, probably regarding Bill, but did you see the Ring camera video of him from this past week?
I
He
didn't. Was
was
it like some?
he was
I know he did.
mysteriously shirtless on some porch in a coast beach looky area, shirtless with pants and a belt on. So people are kind of wondering. So
That's a combo.
McAfee had a very funny segment where they posited that he was inside working with youth, trying to teach them like I want to say woodworking or wrestling moves or something of this nature. But it
I
kind of
thought you were
looked
going to
like
say there was like a Robert Kraft situation going on, but no. Okay.
it
Um,
may not be illegal, but it does seem like it was probably some sort of deviant behavior that he was up to.
that's fine, dude. He's old and he's realized that he's mortal. So there you go. Let's
Yeah.
hear your top five.
Um, Number five, we're gonna go with the Phoenix Suns, which I never thought I would
Oh,
hate a team
interesting. Yeah.
with Kevin Durant on them, but I just hate everything about them. I hate
Okay.
their owner. Like Booker's game a lot. Think he's probably one of the whiniest players in the entire league and doesn't get enough shit for it. Uh, don't
I
like
thought you
Beal very
liked
much.
Booker though, man.
Like Booker's game a lot, and I like Booker as a like individual. I think when he speaks, he's interesting, but on the court, his demeanor annoys me. And
Okay.
I hate their owner. Their owner is a piece of shit. Um, for the Red Sox, uh,
Oh,
really,
I
really,
should
really
put the
hate the Red Sox.
Astros. Yeah.
The Red, yeah, I don't. I'm not the Astros. I forgave the Red Sox. I don't think I'll ever forgive. Um,
Okay.
they provided like the most traumatic sports moment of my life as a Yankees fan, and I just hate their fans. Their fans are very smug. Um, Three, Michigan football and basketball. I can't distinguish because I find both to be insufferable. Uh, don't know how Jawan Howard still has a job after he assaulted a man.
Yeah.
Um,
Not a good
I
look.
take it a bit personally as a Wisconsin fan, but Jawan Howard assaulted a man, and Harbaugh is a classless, cheating scumbag, and he's going to tuck his tail and run to the NFL after this year, like the coward that he is, instead of take the punishment. And their fans are like a cult, and they've become so insufferable. Two, I also have. Oh, you moved them to three, but two is Notre Dame. Can't
Nice.
stand those guys. When they visited USC, and their fans would come with them, just didn't really like those people. They gave off a very bad vibe, and yeah, they're a rival. I'm supposed to hate them, so there you go. And number one is very obvious. I think it's the other team in Glasgow,
Yeah.
Sevco, aka
Nice.
the New Rangers. Um, Probably the most toxic, vitriolic fans on the planet. Um, have a huge victim complex, constantly whine about things. I just don't think they're necessarily the most with it fan base. They just like to pretend they're constantly persecuted, and they suck. And whenever they win, I get very sad. When they beat Celtic, or they win league once every 12 years. So yeah, fuck Rangers. And honorable mention is the Clippers. I just didn't want to give the Clippers the satisfaction of being in the top 5. I don't think
If
they deserve.
anything.
Yes, yes. They're not. They don't live. They're not living. They don't have any space in my head, rent free or whatever you want to say.
Hmm.
Commanders. I used to. They would have been clear cut
Yeah,
number
you
1
did.
for a long time, but for some reason, since they removed the Redskins name, I found that my hate is a lot less, and I don't know why. I just don't take them as seriously with these new names.
They've been circumcised.
Yeah,
The
kind of.
foreskins have been
The
like
four,
yeah,
now
or
they're
what's
just
the
like
word?
they
Castrated. Yeah,
they
yeah,
were the wafts, the WFTs, and now they're the commies.
yeah.
And obviously Spurs are an honorable mention. It's just Tottenham I'm talking about. Um, I get very uncomfortable with Ange being there because I like him so much, and it just makes me very
He's a very
uncomfortable.
likable person. It's kind of a problem for me.
He did too
And
much
he's
for me, like personally for my team. He like really did a lot for Celtic. He recruited like half the players we still have, and they're incredibly dank. Like so,
mm,
and he's very likable as you said. So I can't necessarily say they're in my top 5, even though once the moment he leaves, they might jump back to number like 2.
yeah. I understand. It'd be like if
Phil Jackson went to to Celtics.
so like I was gonna say like if Wenger got like a big contract from Chelsea or something, or like it
Yeah, that's
Tottenham,
also
yeah,
true.
yeah, or something like that. Yeah. Okay, let's move to Bool or bust. Any you said your honorable mentions, right? You said Clips,
Yeah,
Tottenham. Yeah, okay.
and
Uh
the commies.
Commies, yeah.
Yeah.
Bool or bust for me was pretty straightforward this week. Uh I had one Bool and one bust. Bust is related to soccer, so I'll start there. So Southgate made his decisions for England's next couple games. They've already basically secured their Euro qualification.
Hmm.
And I was just like very upset he left Ben White out again, and clearly is like the best right back, English right back slash. You could even argue he's the best center back too, if he was going to play there. So I just don't understand it. It seems kind of spiteful to me when he got sent home, but it doesn't seem for personal reasons. Probably means like I feel like they got into an argument or something, and he's being very spiteful about it. Same thing with Sterling. I'm Sterling's biggest like critic, but he deserves to be on the team right now. And Henderson, Phillips have no business being on the team. I think Maguire actually he's playing and he's playing somewhat well, so you can't really complain right now. But like stretches for Lewis Dunk, who's played 3 times this entire year, you probably want to see Anthony Gordon, Reece James get into the team as well. So I just don't understand Southgate, and what they're gonna do is they'll probably make the semis or the quarters, and people will be happy, but they will not win this way because they're not unlocking the maximal potential of the older players. Like I would take a bet on it. Like I actually put money on it that England won't win the next Euro. That's
Well,
how
that's
confident I
easy.
am with it.
Yeah, that's a you wouldn't get great odds on that because you're
Or
betting
like let's
them
say
against. Yeah,
they won't make the semis. That's a more tasty one because they've done it
that is
consistently.
yeah.
Yeah, I
That's a
would.
good.
Yeah,
That's a pretty bold take.
yes. So and then my rule was my sister came over yesterday and she just went to Target or something, and apparently after I know this is true, but like the Halloween discounts for candy are insane. So she
Uh
bought
huh.
me like 3 or 4 bags of candy for. She said $2, and then I went myself to go buy. I went to Target at the same place to buy before Halloween. I bought 2 bags that were like mid size, and they were I think $12 each, man. So to get like the massive discount, it's like a 500% discount or whatever. So
That's
so right now I'm eating Reese's cups with green on the bottom, and I just think
ooh,
they're more chocolate. I don't think there's any difference. It's just a
there
coloring
isn't.
thing, but
Yeah.
they're very good. So that's my Bool for this week. Hand it off to you, Sebastian.
So for I have 2 bulls. They're pretty straightforward. First bull is the television program Top Boy. don't remember enjoying a television show this much in a very long time.
I need a TV show. Let me look into it.
It's like a British version of The Wire, kind of. That's how I would describe it.
I see. I
And
see.
I put it off for years because I thought it would be kind of corny or something, but it's actually like excellent. It's I haven't binged a show like this in a while because every day I'm just like I want to watch Top Boy. I need to finish up what I'm doing so I can watch Top Boy. And it's a very good show. But the bigger Bool is the under 17 World Cup has started and the
Oh, nice.
games are at terrible times. I haven't really been watching. But yesterday I woke up to the news that Iran's under 17 team had come back from 2-0 down at half to beat Brazil 3-2. And
Oh, wow.
Brazil are the defending champs of the under 17 World Cup. So
Is Endrick
kudos.
playing on the team? Do you know?
Who? I'm not sure
And,
who's on
and
Brazil's team.
okay,
Uh
there's that Real Madrid starlet is supposed to be coming next year. He's 16 or 17, Brazilian.
yeah, I'm not sure if he's on the team, but Iran won 3-2. It was quite impressive. It's been the
Very
talk
good
of
for you.
soccer Twitter for a few days, and I've been very happy to see it. And the bust, it's gonna pain me to say it. I've waited a while to judge, and I think we're 6 episodes in, and I'll say that the Frasier reboot is just kind of a bust.
Oh,
Um,
people have said it's really good.
have they?
Yeah, it's actually surprisingly good. That's what I've heard. But I'm
Okay,
curious.
so
You're a big Frasier guy, so
it's definitely watchable, and some episodes are better than others.
is he
My
just like
biggest
washed up, Kelsey?
no, he's very arrogant. He's not the same Frasier. It's like Frasier's a multi-millionaire now, who can buy apartment buildings at a whim just so he can live next door to his son. And
Oh, okay.
like it's Frasier's a little too different, and I find Frasier's son to actually just be a terrible character who ruins the show a lot of times. Um, don't think the dude's necessarily the best fit for the role. And episodes centered around Freddy are very cheesy. It's not bad to me. My complaint about it is like it's just meh. Like it's an average sitcom that's not really a standout. It's not like as the original Frasier is like excellent. So I didn't have high expectations,
It is. I
but
like it.
yeah, to me it's just kind of very generic and missing some of the wit that the original show had.
It's unfortunate. I was actually considering watching a couple of those
I would
episodes. I do
watch
like.
it.
No, is there my what I saw is that Nigel's not in there, right?
Niles is not, yeah.
Niall, sorry, Niall.
Yeah,
That's he's a big part of the show, man.
yeah. The English guy who's Frasier's like old friend who now he's reacquainted with and is a professor at wherever Frasier is teaching right now. He's pretty funny, but he's like a budget Niles. And Niles' son, who's in the show, supposed to be Niles' son. He can sometimes be kind of funny, but they kind of overdid it on the quirkiness.
Yeah, that's fair too. Like, what's the word? 2020 him.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, he's a lot like Sheldon from Big Bang Theory at times,
Yeah.
Niles' son, which is not. Sometimes Sheldon's funny, but most of the time it's like, all right, this is like a little overdone.
Okay, that's fair. Anything else from Rule Bust, or we'll go to Song of the Week? It actually became quite a long episode, but the NFL thing really got into it.
These NFL things are difficult.
Yeah, but they're fun. I actually enjoyed the
Yeah,
exercise. So, Song of the Week is mine this week. Choosing a song I actually found like 3 days ago. Ginger Root Loretta. It's going through the YouTube algorithm, and it's like this guy who looks like Andrew but with long hair, and he plays every instrument in in the music video, and it's like this groovy like retro type vibe. I sent it to Andrew himself, and I said you'd like this, and he said he'd heard of it already. So yeah, it's very carefree and light song. So that's my choice for this week.
this
All
guy
right,
does
Teeps,
look like Andrew with
but with
long
long
hair,
hair.
kind of.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's it for this week. Thanks for joining, Sebastian, and your hard work on the NFL preview. Appreciate it. We'll be back next week, hopefully with a guest. All right, take care, guys.
All right. Peace.